Welcome to Grimm Gals
Spice Edition. Things are about to get naughty.
Today, our guest is Jennifer Alley, the sexy guru.
Hey.
Boom, 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 boom. I'm super excited to have you here, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
Oh my
Super
God.
excited.
I know. I couldn't think of anyone better for this season specifically because you do so much that has to do with what I would say is people being passionate about life. Like you're getting people. But before I talk about you, I would love you to talk about you.
Yes.
So this is your moment to shine. I'm going to have you actually look at that camera now, and you're going to give us your intro of what you want people to know about you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm Jennifer Alley. I go by the Sexy Guru, and I'm a big believer in people living a life that's authentic, that feels good to them, that gives them a sense of freedom and joy, and that they can be fully expressed and really embrace the totality of everything that life is. So within that, I do a lot of different practices and things. I'm an author, and I do coaching and teaching and mentoring to help people learn how to lead a life of alignment with what they feel is true and best for them, and to really just be in the ebbs and flows of life, because I'm also a big believer that there's nothing really wrong in life. Like, we're just in the experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and so whatever that entails, like, we get to decide what that looks like and how we respond to things. And there's something about being taking responsibility for that creates a sense of empowerment that really helps people uplift themselves to the next highest version of who they're capable of being at any given moment or at any given phase of their lives.
Nice. And this is a love edition, spice edition, excuse me.
Wait, but before you hop into what this episode is about, I just want to comment on what she just said. Because my favorite thing about what you just said is that they're choosing.
Yeah.
They're choosing what is best for them.
Correct.
And I think we're often looking at life and comparing ourselves to others and where we should be. But my favorite thing about what you said is like, what does this mean to you? Where should you be? What feels right for you? And that's so beautiful, because often I don't even think we ask ourselves those questions, tune in to know ourselves that way. And before we get into this episode, I still want to kind of talk a little bit about you, because how do you get people to do that? How do you get people to know themselves like that? That doesn't sound easy.
Well, I think it's really important to have conceptual frameworks for it, because otherwise it is sort of like amorphous and nonlinear and ambiguous. So I give people very concrete tools for thinking about how the mind works. And there are 4 dimensions of the mind, not just the brain, but the energy that flows through you that you use to create your life. There are 4 different dimensions of that we have to talk about. We need to talk about consciousness and your emotions. And we need to talk about like how it works with your human system in terms of, I always love to teach like neuroscience and the brain.
Yeah.
And how it works with your intuition and the anatomy of intuition. So I like to get like really scientific, concrete. And then once people have sort of a framework in their mind for how to think about it, like how am I like being a spiritual being in this human experience, now you can talk about it and work with it in ways that are a lot more tangible. So then I give them very concrete practices. Some of them are things people are already familiar with, like meditation and gratitudes and things like that. But I also have some outside the box practices that I give them. But everything that I do is based on neuroscience and is based on universal laws of how energy works. So there's really kind of like a longer arc of learning that happens. But once that's there and people put things into practice, like they can just rocket really fast.
That's amazing. Do you find that you have to prove yourself often? So the only reason why I say it's a heavy question.
I'm curious.
So because when I hear science,
Yeah.
immediately I'm like, cool, on board science.
Yeah.
Like that's like, how do you fight science? Science is science.
Yeah.
But then you start getting into like the energy. And I feel like that's not something everyone is necessarily like 100% on board, understands, or, like, and so I feel like the fact that you're marrying those two is beautiful and necessary and probably why it works with your clients and everything like that. But I would feel like the fact that you are starting to talk about the energy thing, do you find that you have to kind of get people to like almost in anything you sell yourself, but it's like prove yourself as to like why this is something. I guess the question is, do they come to you so they're ready, or is it more like you're having to be like, this is what I offer and kind of pitch them I guess maybe it's both. I don't know.
It's a little bit of both, but more often than not, people come to me very organically. I've had my business for almost 15 years now, and the last 7 or 8 years, I've been completely independent without doing other, like side gigs or things like that. And in all of this time, but especially this last 7 or 8 years, I've just noticed the patterns of the kind of people that are attracted to my work, the ones who are really ready for it. Some people think they want it, but they're not quite there, and then they get into it and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know it was all this." Some people are ready to dive in and they just like take off really fast. It's more about where someone's at in their own like evolution of their consciousness and their own personal life journey and how we match. And I always trust that whatever the interaction is, if someone's drawn to my energy, there's something beneficial that's going to come out of it, even if it looks like it didn't work, because somehow it's still providing a catalyst for them in their lives and providing something of value that whether they take it and work with it now or maybe it circles back around 10 years later. I don't know. But my job is to like really hold this space and connect with people and just show up with a really loving heart and like really high healthy service and then let the energy sort itself out.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, I'm sorry, what can I say?
No, I was going to say, but your question is really good because I think a lot of people look at the work that I do and they say, oh, spiritual and, guru and whatever, and they think it's very woo-woo. And so that's where we're bringing in the scientific part of it and say, okay, if you want, we can talk from the woo-woo perspective. I can do that. But I think the whole like science part of it, like that's like the meaty part of it, and then people really get on board.
Yeah, but that's something that's happening recently with the science stuff. Like, because I know maybe in the 80s and 70s when people coming out with their self-help and the motivational stuff, people always saw it as woo-woo. But then now with like more technology, more studies, now people are connecting these two together. So I feel like now it's like a golden age for like this type of teaching because we really needed this, Before we were very disconnected from that. I felt like, I don't know if that was because like the history of like the industrial age and then all the technology. And then now people are kind of like, oh, I have emotion and I have vibrations. Like,
yeah, I think this is really the era of consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. It's sort of even like therapy is a little bit like an earlier along the curve. Right.
Yeah.
And now we're in the space of consciousness, of alignment, of like a broader sense of spirituality, because even people are kind of moving away from traditional religion, even though that can provide a meaningful framework for how do you connect with yourself and your sense of the divine, however you hold that to be. A lot of people are not resonating with it because it feels so confined.
Right.
And the consciousness now is broader and it's more inclusive.
Yeah.
And so they're looking for new ways to conceptualize that and then bring it into a practical application in their own lives.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just depending on like just medication. Because you know how nowadays it's all about depression and antidepressants, but it's like you need to combine that with some type of like study, some type of like.
Well, it's like sometimes medications are necessary, sometimes they're unnecessary. There's so many different things and where it's not a one-size-fits-all model. I think it's fascinating that you've been doing this for 15 years because, like, talking about this now, people probably don't bat an eye. They're like, okay, this is totally they don't have to ask probably as many questions to understand what you do and why you do it. But 15 years ago, I'm sure you were probably walking with like in like a dinosaur prehistoric world of this kind of work because who was talking about energy 15 years ago? Only the woo-woo.
Yeah, it was really the woo-woo people. And 15 years ago, I really started with more coaching. I was doing a lot of like health and wellness coaching, addictions, like coaching and counseling. So like really tangible stuff, stress management, that kind of thing. And then when I started my business, it was more like a life coaching. And I still didn't even really know exactly what I was going to do. I just knew this is the path I'm starting. I'm a build the ship as I sail it kind of gal. So a lot of times I get into something and I'm like, I just know this is right, but I don't know yet exactly what it looks like or where it's going. So, I live into it and figure it out as I go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what we were talking about before we got on was we wanted to discuss the different types of love that you say exist because you were telling me there's so many. So we wanted to kind of touch upon like some of the topics as to like how love affects it and what different relationships people have and all that because that's kind of like your expertise.
This is the love episode.
Yeah.
And we thought who better to talk about love than the sexy guru. The guru.
Yes.
Bah oui, ma chérie.
Ooh.
You probably didn't know I'm a
Oui,
francophone,
oui.
did you?
Oh.
Because je parle français.
Oh my God. So
No.
wait, hold on. How many languages do you speak now?
Now, I can claim legitimately 4.
Oh, wow.
But like 4 and change because I speak a little bit of Arabic, but it's
Shut the
very
hell up.
specific.
Wow.
I really wanted to say fuck, but I went with hell instead because we're in the fire mode. We gotta shut the
Yes.
hell up.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Arabic. Why?
I lived in Europe for about 4 or 5 years, and I just had a lot of friends from North Africa.
Oh wow.
And when I first moved to Europe, I was living in the Netherlands, and there are a lot of people there from Morocco in particular. And I just made friends, and some of them, like their moms, didn't speak Dutch or English or Spanish, which were the languages that I was like working on at the time. And so I would just sit and like figure out how to say words in Arabic.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I just learned some simple phrases, but it's enough. I call my Arabic rapport worthy, right?
Yeah.
Like if I meet someone who's
Yeah.
Arabic speaking, I can speak enough to like
Yeah.
That's
connect.
nice. Well, I heard like if you learn an additional language, it's
Yeah.
easier because you kind of trained your brain into how do I switch on and off and be able to kind of think in more than one language. And once you can think in more than one language, then it's not that complicated to then add on to it, especially with the Romance languages. So if you speak Spanish, French, and
French was
you know,
pretty
French is
easy.
easier.
Yeah.
And English, Dutch was pretty easy. There are things in Dutch that's
You're
like, it
speaking
sounds
Dutch?
just like,
this is random as
Look it
hell.
up. I gotta look it up.
Random as hell, woman. That is crazy.
yeah, it's fun.
Oh my God. What does it sound like? Speak a little Dutch.
Als ik spreek Nederlands, dan ja.
And that sounds
Oh,
like
it's-
English.
Zo is het als ik spreek Scheveningse Schapenscheren. Dat
I
is
love
like
that.
echte
It's
Nederlands.
very
Ja, dat is
German.
echt, but German is like it's like harder. Dutch is like a little bit softer,
It reminds me of German Finnish or something like that. Like you're getting
like a little blend.
like you're getting
Yeah.
it's Nordic, but it's like
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that shine, you know, like the
Ja,
and
we kunnen over de liefde praten, want ik
It
vind
sounds
het
amazing. I wish I could
heel
learn
leuk.
that.
what did you
Heel
tell
mooi.
us?
I said we can talk about love
Oh.
because
Yes.
it's so beautiful.
Yes.
What's love in Dutch?
Liefde,
What's
Lief.
love in French?
amor,
Oh, it's the
Amor.
same. Okay.
l'amour,
That's like
l'amour.
Spanish.
Yeah.
Oui, el amor en
Amor.
español.
Yeah.
Sí.
And Arabic?
الحب.
It kind of sounds like
is
hope
like
almost.
it's more like a B sound. الحب.
Hope.
Or but yeah, الحب you can say. Like أنا بحبك would be like I love you.
Oh,
You have very good
pronunciation.
yeah. I was
I
trying
love
to look
it.
for that word, but yeah, you like the tonality and stuff is
Yeah.
very nice. This is so random, but you're from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Which
I'm
makes
a
it
Midwest girl.
which makes this even more random. But I do find my mom's from Minnesota, so I grew up going there a lot, and I find that a lot of people in Minnesota, like the education there is very like I feel like almost like intentional in a different way. Like you guys study, and I feel like you learn, and I don't know why, but it feels clean. It feels like you guys. Because I know a lot of people that are speaking multiple languages. I'm like, no one's in Minnesota speaking multiple. Like, why do you need this language? But like, I feel like maybe because of the geography of where you grew up, I find that they travel often. I feel like they learn about different cultures often. They learn to speak other languages. Where I'm from New York City, there's tons of it around. We're lazy as hell. We're like, speak our language or get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not trying. We learn because it's around us, but we're not intentionally learning that way. But do you think that has to do with it? Or
You know, I think it's a little bit, but I would say it's still kind of an anomaly to find someone from Minnesota who's even bilingual.
oh, okay.
So I see it as, I mean, I fortunately had exposure to a lot of different cultures because my dad worked at the Mayo Clinic and he always had like visiting guest professors from other countries and things like that. And I was always intrigued by other cultures and other languages. And so I think definitely to some degree it's just a me thing. I think that this is also part of sort of my life trajectory because my life's work is about connecting people. It's about reaching people in a wide variety of ways and environments. And so for me to be someone who's multilingual, it just serves like my bigger missions in life. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing here is you obviously had a very intelligent father and very intelligent household. So I feel like when you have that to look up to, you're kind of almost have to step up to that plate yourself. Like, how are you going to not be, you know, how are you not going to live up if he's working in such a prestigious field. Where are you going to go, you know?
Yeah. You know, in theory, I wish it were that clean, but my parents were divorced and I grew up a lot with my mom and my stepdad.
Okay.
Very different culture in that household.
Okay.
That weren't valuing necessarily the same thing. It was just like, just get good grades.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, but fortunately, I had this kind of like dichotomy that I grew up in, like both sides. So the thing that I think I've always followed is what do I get passionate about? And I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about connecting people. I'm passionate about love. Like, I'm really like that love bug person, which frequently gets misunderstood.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, since I was a little kid, like that was the thing that was most important to me is everybody be together and everybody like listen to music and eat good food and love each other like that and probably dance. That would have been like my dream world.
I love that you said passion because that was our first episode. We hit on passion. All right, so let's get back on our love topic. And Valeria, what was your question for Jennifer?
I mean, I was just asking what are the different love languages or whatever I said earlier.
Those are totally different.
Yeah,
things.
we've gone a lot of different.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I was asking about I want what we talked about outside. I just wanted to touch upon the different. Like, remember we talked about either romantic love, we talked about familiar, platonic love, and the third one was going to be, I think, the consciousness one. Just wanted to touch upon that.
I think love is something that is universal. Love is an energy field, and love is something that is the core and essence of our being, and so it's natural to us. And then we always are learning and discovering ourselves and experiencing ourselves through the context of relationship, whether it's relationship to ourselves, relationship to other people, relationship to the earth, relationship to just life experiences. And so love is a certain kind of energy that gets activated. And then, you know, you put it in a relationship context and you're going to experience it differently. So romantic love, we experience in a very particular kind of way, different than like parent-child love or different than friendship love, right? So it's a word that like everybody's using like pretty loosely these days. Oh my gosh, I love that, or I love you, and you know, those kinds of things. And I love that, right? Because I think it's a great use of language and way to connect. And yet love is so expansive. You know, love isn't just a feeling. We experience it as a feeling, but love is a much more comprehensive energy.
Because like I heard that romantic love is not even like healthy, you know, because the way that we've been taught how it is. How do you feel about that? Because like
so I think there's a distinction that needs to be made between love and attachment. Attachment is what can become toxic and painful because you merge your sense of self with someone else, which is part of that high of love when it's new and it's exciting. But as soon as, you know, another person isn't doing what you want them to do, or they're triggering you, or you're getting into the aspects of relationship where the attachment aspect or the attachment part of it kind of dominates, like you lose your sense of self, that's when it can become like a negative experience. But it's not the love itself.
Right, because
it's the attachment.
Right, because from what I understand, and maybe you guys have different opinions about this, is that love's supposed to be accepting, even if it means that person is going to move on, or if that person doesn't really fit your idea of them. Because that kind of falls into like parent stuff. Like I feel I'm not a parent. Or do you have kids? Okay. Well, I imagine if you're a parent, I feel like you need to embrace your child for who they are instead of trying to make them what you want. You know, and that's kind of the same thing when it comes to like having a partner. You know, you can't just make them be what you want, but you have to embrace them for who they are. But then it's like like, how do you coach people when it comes to that kind of stuff? Or
I would coach them on whatever they're bringing to the table. But that's a common one.
Like dysfunctional relationships in all fields, you know, with family or even like romantic partners. Like, how does that go?
I feel like you were going to say something to.
No, I was just thinking about. I like the idea of us all kind of establishing like what the definition of love means to us, kind of, because I liked like when you were saying this is what I've heard, but it's also like it's kind of going back to your coaching. What does it mean to you? You know, because that's different. It's like, yeah, we can take what we're heard and see where that sits with us. Does that make sense for us? Or have our experiences told us otherwise? Like, what does it mean to you? Like, in life, there's no one answer and there's no right.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
wrong. There's just what is your experience. And so,
And you know, you saying that made me think about like relationships regarding open relationships. I mean, are you okay with your partner having other sexual partners, but as long as you're with me emotionally? Things like that, right? Like, how do
I
we
love
feel
that
about
we're
that?
hopping all over. Like, we cannot get a straight answer off of one topic because we're just like, and that makes me think of this, and then this,
Yeah.
and
well,
then this.
yeah, because I mean, love is like you said, it's such an expansive topic.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe right now we could talk about relationships in particular, because like, what is love to all of us? Maybe what is romantic love to all
So
of
relationships
us? You
is a different episode. So let's
Yeah.
focus on love because
Yeah.
we're doing that next with our next guest. So let's focus on love. And I think maybe it's kind of nice to go around and say, what does love mean to you? What does
Yeah.
it? What does it feel? Do you want to start or?
Yeah, sure. Well, in what aspects? Because like when I the way I love my, I guess, romantic partner wouldn't be the same how I love my mom.
But,
Or my
but
dad.
are there similarities between the two, like certain aspects of love that you
Yeah,
can say?
I would say like you. Of course, I would say I feel like this is a very general answer, but I
Yeah.
feel like if I love somebody, I want the best for them, and I want them to be happy with whatever they're in, even if I don't understand it. You know, as long as they're doing good and they're thriving and they feel good about what they're doing and they're safe, then I'm 100% okay with that, even if I don't agree with it that well.
Yeah.
So why would that be
Nice.
different for your mom and your partner?
Well, because I don't know, my mom is older and my partner is like, I imagine not as old as my mom. So like what my mom is doing right now is not what my partner's doing. Because my mom, maybe right now she's retired. You know, she's not out there trying to make all this money, you know, and like maybe for my partner, I'd want them to kind of be out there making some money because
But
like,
that
they're
sounds
not
less-
retired, you know.
But that sounds less about love and more about expectation.
Yeah, well, love is expectation, I believe. Isn't there
Oh, that's what you
expectations? Yeah.
See, so for me, maybe I'll go with what
Yeah.
love means to me. So
Yeah,
to me, love is beyond a feeling. Love is commitment. Love is a net. It's something that is a space that you can hold for somebody in your heart, in your soul, in your spirit. And that, to me, I don't think ever goes away, but the amounts you give to people may change and vary throughout time based off of who needs certain amounts of it more. And how much time you're spending with somebody can change the amount of love you're giving out, but it is more of like an energy for me. Because to me, if I love somebody, I just know it, and I can know it very early, and it has something to do with like almost like a soul contract that happens beyond what I ever even thought. It just happens. I'm just like, I see this person before I even know this person. I feel this person without even having to touch this person, and who they are and how they are in existence. I'm very grateful for. I'm so happy to meet them. Therefore, I love them and I want the best for them. And it's like, even as I talk about it, I get tingles, and it's like, I know this and I feel this. Sometimes it is a feeling that is something that is like from your family, beyond you being able to agree, accept, commit to it. It's just there. It's like my family, it's a little bit more of like a mandatory. I love them therefore because they're my family. Even if sometimes I'm like, if I met you in the world, would I feel this way? I don't know. I don't know that. But there's that type of love that's just like familiar love is, to me, it's because we're connected. We're tied through our blood, through our genetics, through our household. And that means something to me, even if you might not be the healthiest person in my life right now. You might be going through your own stuff. I still am going to love you because we're tied.
Through blood, you think? Or
Through life, the fact that we might have the same parents, we might have the same grandmother. Like, there's a reason, in my opinion, that these people are in
Part of
your
your
life, and they are, without you choosing them, they are. And I think that matters and means something. Then there's the love of the people you just meet throughout life and how beautiful that is. But to me, like, there is a general love, and that is just a feeling, and you can feel it. And I think it has to do with, do you really like accept this person? And do you want to show up for them and have them like blossom and succeed and be there for them? And I think you can do that for someone who's romantic, familiar, platonic, any of it, if you have that love for them. And yeah.
I want to feel like I want to hear your feedback on that, because you heard both of us. Because when I was listening to her speak, I was like, I agree, but then like when it comes to like a friend or like a family member, that's easy. But when it comes to like someone that I'm with romantically, I feel differently. So like it's really interesting you said that. But I feel like you were nodding when she was saying some stuff. Like I wanted to see like
what's your
feedback
opinion on love?
Yeah.
She's gonna have her own opinion on
Yeah,
love.
I want some feedback on what you heard and your own take on it.
Okay, so I think that there are a lot of different ways of conceptualizing love, obviously. For me, love is a state of being.
Oh, I like the way you put that.
It's a state of being that feels most true and most authentic to you because it's the highest aspect of who you are.
Oh, wow.
She's got like a
I'm
actual
loving
definition.
that.
She has
I'm
like
loving
she's got like a we're like trying to guess here. Like I feel like I've never been asked this question ever in my life, and you have thought
your
about
definition
this,
went
I
right
just
through my
came
head.
up with that actually.
front door.
Okay, well, keep
But
going,
I do have
going.
a framework for it because I think in terms of levels of consciousness.
Okay.
And love is one of the highest frequencies that exists.
Okay.
And as as spiritual beings having a human experience, when you're operating from a state of authentic love, you're in high consciousness. And the higher frequencies include everything below it.
Right.
So authentic love includes things like acceptance and gratitude and joy and appreciation, but it also includes fear. It includes anger. It includes grief, right? All of those things get to be a part of like the totality of all that is. So think about it this way. If you think about light coming from the sun, it's a white light. White light includes all the colors of the rainbow, right? The further you come away from the light, the more you go into the dark and the worse it feels because it's not authentic to like the all that is. Same thing with emotions. When you're in a state of love, you're high frequency, you're aligned to like the source, to the all that is, to who you really are. And the further you come away from that, the worse it feels. Because the more you go into the dark aspects or the shadow aspects of the self. So that's when you have things like expectations come up and now you're getting upset with somebody because they didn't do this and that, or somebody left you and now you feel totally distraught and destroyed. And all of these things are perfectly fine. There's no judgment about them because they're part of the human experience. They're part of how you're discovering yourself through relationship. And it's meaningful and it's useful. And yet, as you go through the cycles of that, whatever relationship, whether it's a parent relationship, a family relationship, a romantic relationship, or anything else, it's going to evoke something within you, right? And then you get to look at it and decide, how do I want to be with this? And what is this telling me about who I am today and who I'm capable of becoming tomorrow? But love is like that high frequency energy that includes everything.
You know, when you mentioned that, and this is something that I do, maybe I'm not really hugely religious, okay? But I was raised Catholic, right? So there was a time in my life where I feel kind of scared. Maybe I'm unsure about the future. Maybe I'm literally just nervous in my situation, whatever it be. And like I read somewhere that love is the strongest power that there is in the universe. So I hold some type of like safety when I feel upset or in fear or I just feel overwhelmed with life, that I start kind of like in a way praying, and I kind of start telling to myself, well, if I'm in love, nothing else can come and attack me in a way. And again, I'm not trying to make this about religion per se, but nothing evil, quote unquote, nothing negative can come and like attack me because I'm in love authentically. Like how is like, I don't know. I just, you're saying
that's
that invoke that.
That's frequency. When you're feeling that state of love, right, then that's the vibration that's in your energy field. So the human heart has an electromagnetic field that extends about 5 to 10 feet out from the body. And whatever your emotional state is, it sort of like fills up that field. That's how you can like sense somebody's vibe, right? And so there's a whole thing behind that behind the anatomy of intuition that I won't go into, but the like that energy fills up your field, and so things that are a match to that come into it through the law of attraction, and things that are not a match will be repelled. So intuitively, you're sensing when I'm filled up with love and I feel that high positive state, like bad things aren't going to come in; they're just not a match. That's like a very simplistic kind of. I mean, I think there are sort of like nuances to that. But that would be a sort of like simplistic. Does that make sense?
No, like
totally.
healing.
Yeah.
Like
healing.
Well,
I liked when you were saying, so what you were saying made me think about, it's kind of like when someone's trolling you or talking smack about you. And it's like, if you know confidently why you're doing something, why you're saying something, why you're putting this out, and someone's not understanding that or whatever, like, yeah, maybe you can try to explain it, but it's also kind of like, that's your stuff. And it's like separating what's your stuff or whatever. And yeah, it could be a blanket of love that you're just focusing on and channeling, but it's also just having that self-assurance and self-awareness of what is your intention in your actions, and kind of letting everything else bounce off of that, like, and
which is being authentic in a way, which is kind of full circle with this.
Everything's going a very beautifully full circle. I'm loving this episode. I'm like, as I'm listening to you talk and everything, I'm just like, you need your own podcast to talk and go in depth.
Do you have your own
everything.
podcast?
I don't. I'm thinking about
it. Girl, you need one.
Another conversation. That's another conversation. I do want to say something though. Build on what you were saying, Abby, about soul contracts.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, soul contracts.
Soul contract. Yeah, there are soul contracts, soul agreements. So here's the concept. If we're spiritual beings having a human experience, first and foremost, the truth of who we are is that soul aspect, which is that high frequency version of ourselves. And before we come into this life experience, we have soul agreements with other people. And the kind of agreement that you have depends on how close they are to you in proximity within your soul family or soul group. But you will have an instant recognition when you meet people who are soul family, or you have that soul connection with, where you have that instant click, like you meet them and in 5 minutes you're like, I know I love you, like period. You know what I mean? And so intuitively we have senses of that. In our biological family, we have soul agreements with everybody, but we don't necessarily have that soul family kind of feeling that we do with maybe somebody who's like a best friend or somebody who, you work with, that you're just like, oh my gosh, we got to do something together because our energy together is so great. Or that maybe you have with a romantic partner, etc. So there are different ways of looking at the human connections that we have. And for me, I'm always looking from the level of the soul. First and foremost. Yeah. Because that's my field too. And something I haven't mentioned yet, I don't know if you know this, I work in the Akashic Records.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that about you.
So I'm technically an Akashic Records master.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
I have a friend like that.
I've been working in it for a long time, and also I teach. Like I train people to access the Akashic Records. And for listeners, for people who maybe don't know what the Akashic Records are, it's considered to be like a spiritual library. If we talk about it in woo-woo terms, if we talk about it in science, we're going to call it the matrix or the unified field or the quantum field. But it's basically an energy field that carries the information of every consciousness that exists. Wow. So sort of like the cloud has information about kind of anything you want to know, right? And then you're going to like ask Google, and Google's going to tell you on your whatever device you're looking at. It's going to interpret the information. Yeah. The information about consciousness is in the Akashic field. Right. And the human brain is a supercomputer that has certain components that know how to download that information and interpret it. Wow. So anytime that you have like an inspired thought or like an intuitive impulse or an idea that just like came out of the blue, that's coming from your own Akashic Records. It's here to help guide you through your life. But the information is there about like all of the soul connections and soul agreements that you have. So
I want to say something about that, because even though I'm very open-minded to these things and I really enjoy these type of conversations and I'm all about them, but then I start thinking about people that are skeptical, people that are atheist, people that are a little bit like, oh, this is all the people that are woo-woo. And I talk from experience, because one of my bestest friends is very skeptical, very atheist, like anything like this, They are very like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, so like, I'm just curious, like, because how can you explain this to people like that are so against things that are not tangible? You know what I mean? Like, do you guys know people that are super skeptic, hardcore skeptics, people that are super atheists? Almost frustrating sometimes to like deal with them. Like,
Yeah. So for me, I'm not here to convince anyone of anything.
Yeah, that's
I'm here
my
to
thing.
present, this is my perspective. This is my experience. This is who I am. This is what I do. If there's resonance there for you, if you're curious about it, I'm happy to show more or share more. If that's not for you, then tell me about you. What do you like in life? Like, I want to get into you
okay.
because to me, the more important thing is the quality of the connection.
Right.
And as soon as you start to tell somebody something and preach, if they're not interested, it's like it could be about anything, right? Like roller skating. Somebody doesn't care. Like they're going to check out. You know what I mean? They don't.
roller skating.
Yeah. Well, like it could be about anything. We
No,
could talk
yeah,
about the
totally.
Super Bowl and like people who don't care about sports, they're like going to glaze over,
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. And I'm more interested in the connection and let me get into your brain. What do you like? What do you believe? It's and I celebrate the people who are the skeptics and the ones who don't know, because we're here to be like a wide variety of expressions of the divine, and we need them too. Like we need one of everybody.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for people that don't have a belief that there's something bigger, but at the same time, like you said, there's purpose for everything. And their purpose is kind of them rejecting it allows for people who go towards it to kind of explore deeper. Because if everyone just accepted this, we probably would only reach a certain level. But because somebody's kind of pushing back on us, it naturally forces us to question more because they're kind of coming up against us.
Yeah.
I love that. I love how you made it seem so beautiful. Like they're there for a reason. I love that.
Absolutely.
And I kind of feel like there was a time where a lot of people were kind of like in that. And I think now, like, again, we're in a time where everyone's kind of more open-minded and allowing new ideas, because we're kind of like, I've done this way for so long. Let me just open up to new things. Because that's kind of how I got into opening my mind to new things. Because like it just comes to a point where you're like at a wall.
Yeah.
You're just like, all right, let me just try something more. Let me just open up my mind to something more. Why not? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
I would
hearing
say
now.
a couple things about that. One, for someone who's like, let's say, very atheistic and not a believer and whatever, it's like, good for them. If that's what works for them, I don't care what you believe or don't believe, as long as it feels right and true to you.
Yeah.
Like that's the most important thing. And then as far as like now you have a grouping of people who create that juxtaposition, right? And then that kind of holds a larger framework that also creates some propulsion for people who want to have more movement, active movement towards deepening their sense of spirituality, whatever that sense is for them. So I see both ways.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right, so we're having to wind down our episodes. There's two things that I want to happen.
Okay.
One is, what the hell is on our table besides coffee right now?
Oh, this bad boy.
Yeah, tell
Well,
us.
yes.
Tell
you
us.
have a look at it.
Well, no, I want first do a little fucking Vanna
Do
White
a little-
situation. Dun 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 dun. Do, do, do,
National
do,
award-winning
do.
author.
This is the second edition of the Drama Freeway book, subtitle Authentic Thriving in a Chaotic World.
I gotta read it. We
Oh,
gotta
all right,
read it.
hand it over, Valeria. You touch that bad boy.
I need to read this. Is there one?
This looks beautiful. So when did
It's
this
really
come
good.
out? When did?
So the original edition came out end of 2015.
Okay, nice.
Yep. And so this one I updated in 2020. So it's already, I can't believe it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
But basically the book talks about different levels of consciousness, but from looking through the lens of emotion. And it talks about how the drama that we experience in life, in the world around us, and also even within ourselves sometimes, it comes from three core human wounds that are tribal wounds that everybody has. And it's shame,
Okay.
abandonment,
Oh yeah.
and betrayal.
Oof.
We've
I
all
resonate.
experienced
I resonate.
all of these, right?
Yes.
And so what happens is in your developmental years, you experience these wounding, this kind of emotional and spiritual wounding. And then now that sets a framework for your beliefs, and especially your beliefs about yourself. And then you build an identity
Around
and an
it.
image around that. And now you're walking in the world based on these very false beliefs, usually. And yes, they're false beliefs. And And now the world is responding to your energy based on that.
Right.
So then that starts cycles of thought patterns that
Your
perpetuate
story
that
you
drama.
tell in your head.
Yep. And so a lot of drama is really about, it's the definition in the book is that drama is a social survival mechanism that seeks to meet our needs, to be seen and heard, and to feel like we're valued and that we matter in the absence of having healthy ways to do it.
Wow. And do you provide healthy ways to maybe
that's what I'm
break
looking-
free out of
babe.
this
That's what
trap?
The whole first half of the
That's-
book
yeah.
is about drama. It's about the thought patterns, the energies, also how drama works as an addiction, because biochemically we get used to the same
Yes, the
chemicals in our system, right? That spike, that high of like getting in the drama of something, and the body gets used to it. So now you need to unravel that. And so the whole first half of the book is that. Part 2 is all about like, how do you shift into a space of authentic thriving where you don't need to be reactive? You're not quite as triggerable. And that has to do with being in alignment. Because when you're in alignment with who you really are, your brain works better.
Yes,
You can make better decisions. You can connect with people. You can be in a state of curiosity, right? You have a lot more acceptance. You just feel more balanced, more peaceful. And then you don't necessarily get as triggered into the limbic system of the brain, which is survival, right? You can think through things very rationally. Even if you're having an emotional response, you can look at it differently. And so it gives tools for that and talks about the kinds of thought patterns
Gotta read that book.
go with that. And then
Yeah.
it ties it to universal laws.
Oh yeah, what are the laws? The universal laws.
Yeah, things like the law of attraction that people have heard about. But there's more to it in there, and that's like the law of polarity, the laws of gender and gestation, things that most people don't really know about that we don't really have time to go into today. But the last thing I'll say too about the book is that it also has a chapter on what to do with OPD.
What's
OPD?
OPD?
Other people's drama.
Ah,
Yeah, because
damn.
everybody has someone with
I
drama in
love
their
it.
life,
Oh, they're
right?
so
And you
annoying.
just
Yeah.
you get like caught like a deer in the headlights, like you don't know what to do with it.
It's like a force field they push you in.
Yeah,
So be careful
exactly.
what you let in.
So it gives like really
Yeah.
good tools for how to navigate.
That's what I'm
that.
looking at. It's like almost a book and a workbook. Like you can
Totally,
like
yes.
fill in all these things. Like I was flipping through and there's like intentions. There's a lot of beautiful work. So
I
it's
need
like
this
no,
book.
it's like yeah, it's like you're reading, you're learning, but I love that there's actionable items because that's the kind of thing is like we can learn, but if we're not gonna do something about it, what are we doing here? So tell them how we can get this. Where is this? Where can we find this?
For anybody who wants an autographed signed copy, you can just message me directly. You can do it through my website, Jennifer Alley, ALLY, like ally, jenniferalley.com, or anyone can find me at
Amazon?
The Sexy Guru on Instagram. Yeah, so you can buy it on Amazon, but I'm just going to tell you guys, it's always best to get a book from the author.
Right.
Because then the author really gets the profits.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like,
yeah, no, it makes sense.
it's like change. But also then it's like you can make that personal connection as well. And for where I'm at career-wise right now, I still have the luxury of being able to have more personal connection with people.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that every time.
Yeah, I love that. Like while you can, why
While
not?
I can, I want to,
Why not?
especially when it's my known community and people who I want to go deeper with and embrace and just, share the love with.
That's
I love
awesome.
that.
Yeah, thanks.
So we are wrapping up our episode. I could talk to you forever. I want to learn so much more about this. I'm sure at some point we will have you back. Please explore your own version of what you do in an audio or visual aspect because you have so much knowledge to share with people. And I know I want to learn more, and you do it in such a digestible way that I feel like you'd be very good at. People would love to listen to you. So I hope that we see that
Same.
next in the next 2.0 version
Yes.
of the drama-free way.
Yeah.
But to wrap up this episode, I would love us in one word, even if it's hard, to say what is love in one word. And I know you had a beautiful definition, but it was more of a sentence and a two-parter. But in one word, what is love? We're going to each go around and then we're going to do our sign off and
You
carry
go
on
first.
with our day. All right. What is love? Connection.
For me, it's peace.
Truth.
Ooh, those are some great words.
Gorgeous. I love it. All right. So this was Grimm Gals
Spice Edition.
Are you feeling
Naughty?
It's funny because we made this whole thing Spice Edition, like, and we were talking about like it's naughty, but we haven't gotten into the naughty. Like everything so far has been like very like beautiful and heartfelt. So our sign off is kind of like, are we? But you're gonna hear it and you're probably gonna laugh because it doesn't totally make sense. All right.